Kristin Denise Smart was born on February 20th, 1977 in Germany, where her parents, Stan and Denise Smart, worked as teachers. Shortly after Kristin's birth, the family moved to the United States, settling in Stockton, California. There, Kristin spent most of her childhood along with her two younger siblings. From an early age, Kristin displayed an adventurous spirit and love for the ocean. She was an active child who enjoyed sports, especially swimming and volleyball. Her close ones described her as a tall, statuesque girl standing about 5 feet 9 inches, who radiated confidence and cheerfulness. In school, Kristin was a good student, although she faced challenges due to attention deficit disorder, for which she took medication. Despite this, she successfully graduated from Lincoln High School in Stockton in June 1995. Kristin had big dreams of travel and adventure. During school vacations, she participated in an exchange program in Venezuela, where she improved her Spanish, and the following summer, she spent time in Great Britain. These trips only intensified her desire to see the world. After graduating from high school, Kristin enrolled at California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo, known as Cal Poly. Initially, she chose architecture as her major, but later decided to change it to communications, dreaming of becoming a journalist and traveling the world in search of new stories. The first year of university proved challenging for Kristin. She was homesick, and even asked her parents several times to allow her to temporarily drop out or transfer to another university. However, her parents convinced her to be patient, and by the end of the first year, Kristin began to adapt better to university life, improving her grades. On May 24th, 1996. On the eve of Memorial Day, 19-year-old Kristin Smart decided to attend a party. Many students had gone home for the 3-day weekend, but Kristin stayed on campus. That evening, she wore black shorts, a cropped t-shirt, and red sneakers. Before leaving, Kristin called home, but no one answered. She left a message on the answering machine, mentioning good news. Later, her mother speculated that this might have been about finding a final biology exam that Kristin had previously been unable to locate. Around 8:30 p.m., Kristin and her friend Margarita Campos left the dormitory in search of a party. They met 2 other girls and stopped a familiar guy who was driving by in a pickup truck. The group set out in search of entertainment, but initially, they had no luck. Most students had gone home. Eventually, Kristin remembered a birthday party at an unofficial Kappa Chi fraternity house near campus. Margarita didn't want to go there, so Kristin went alone. Margarita gave her her dormitory keys since Kristin didn't have her phone, wallet, or own keys with her. At the party, there was a lot of alcohol and loud music. Testimonies about Kristin's behavior at the party vary. Some claim she was drinking vodka, others say she remained sober. Among those present were Cheryl Anderson, Tim Davis, and Paul Flores, all Cal Poly students. Around 2 a.m., the party began to break up. Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis found Kristin lying on the lawn of a neighboring house. They helped her up and decided to walk her back to the dormitory. Paul Flores joined them, offering his help. The group slowly walked towards campus. Tim Davis left first, as he lived off campus. When they reached the intersection where their paths diverged, Cheryl Anderson also decided to go to her dormitory. Paul Flores promised to walk Kristin to her room. This was the last time Kristin Smart was seen alive. The subsequent events of that night remain a mystery that has not been solved to this day. Kristin Smart's disappearance wasn't noticed immediately. On Saturday morning, her roommate Crystal returned to the dormitory and found Kristin absent. At first, this didn't cause concern, as it was common practice for students to spend weekends off campus. However, when Kristin didn't show up on Sunday, her friends began to worry. They walked around the dormitory, asking if anyone had seen Kristin, but to no avail. Kristin's personal belongings, including her wallet, identification card, and keys, remained in her room in the same state she had left them on Friday. On Monday, May 27th, Kristin's concerned friends contacted campus police. However, their worries were not taken seriously. The police suggested that Kristin might have spontaneously gone to visit friends without informing anyone, which was not uncommon among students. It wasn't until Tuesday, May 28th, that campus police began an official investigation. They contacted Kristin's parents, who by that time had already started to worry about the lack of a promised call from their daughter. Stan Smart, Kristin's father, immediately came to the university to meet with the police. The initial response of law enforcement drew criticism from the Smart family and the public. The delay in starting the investigation led to the loss of valuable time and potential evidence. Kristin's room and other places in the dormitory were cleaned by university staff before the police could thoroughly examine them. During the first days of the investigation, police began interviewing students who were present at the party on May 24th. Special attention was paid to Paul Flores, Cheryl Anderson, and Tim Davis, the last people to see Kristin. By the beginning of June, it became evident that Kristin Smart's disappearance was not a usual case of failing to report one's whereabouts. The investigation was transferred to the San Luis Obispo Police Department, and the scope of the search greatly expanded. Hundreds of volunteers and police officers combed the area around the Cal Poly campus using search dogs and radar equipment. However, these efforts did not yield significant results. No traces of Kristin were found. Parallel to the physical searches, investigators continued to interview witnesses and gather information. Special attention was paid to Paul Flores. During interrogations, it was revealed that Paul had a bruise under his eye, which he explained differently initially. He claimed he didn't remember how he got it. Then he talked about an injury during a basketball game, and later changed his version, saying he hit himself on the steering wheel while installing a car stereo. These contradictory explanations aroused suspicion among investigators. Moreover, it became known that Paul had a reputation for being weird among his classmates, and was even nicknamed Chester the Molester due to inappropriate behavior towards girls. In mid-June, police conducted a search of Paul Flores' dormitory room. Although the room had already been cleaned after the end of the academic year, search dogs detected traces that could indicate the presence of human remains. The dogs reacted to the mattress, telephone, and trash can in the room. Media began to actively cover the case, attracting public attention across the country. The Smart family worked tirelessly to maintain interest in the search for Kristin. They set up a billboard with their daughter's photo and offered a reward for information about her whereabouts. Despite intensive searches and investigations, by the end of July 1996, no substantial progress had been made in the case. The lack of concrete evidence in Kristin's body complicated the work of investigators, leaving many questions unanswered. From August 1996, the investigation focused on Paul Flores as the main suspect. His contradictory testimonies and suspicious behavior attracted close attention from investigators. In July, police obtained a warrant to search the Flores family home. The search was conducted using ground-penetrating radar and search dogs, but did not yield substantial results. Newspaper clippings about the Kristin Smart case were found under the mattress of Paul's father, Ruben Flores, raising additional questions. Paul Flores was offered to take a polygraph test. Initially, he agreed but kept postponing the test. Eventually, when the time came to take the test, Paul refused but agreed to an additional interview. During this interview, Paul's behavior was described as nervous and defensive. He avoided direct answers to questions and, according to investigators, seemed close to confessing, but stopped at the last moment. In September 1996, new information emerged. A couple renting a house from Paul Flores' mother, Susan, found an earring in the yard. The earring had traces that resembled blood. Kristin's parents recognized the description of the earring as belonging to their daughter. However, when the police tried to obtain the earring for analysis, it turned out that it had been lost or misplaced, raising new questions about the effectiveness of the investigation. In November 1996, the Smart family filed a civil lawsuit against Paul Flores for wrongful death. This was a strategic move aimed at forcing Flores to testify under oath. However, during the court hearing, Paul refused to answer questions, citing the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. By the end of the year, the investigation had reached a dead end. Despite suspicions about Paul Flores, the lack of direct evidence complicated further progress in the case. The Smart family continued to pressure law enforcement, demanding more active actions in the investigation. The period from 1997 to 2001 was characterized by prolonged uncertainty in the Kristin Smart case. The investigation continued, but without substantial breakthroughs. In 1997, the Smart family filed another civil lawsuit, this time against California Polytechnic State University. They accused the university of negligence regarding student safety and inadequate response to Kristin's disappearance. This lawsuit marked the beginning of a lengthy legal battle that lasted many years. During this period, investigators continued to collect and analyze evidence. Additional searches were conducted in the homes of the Flores family, but they did not yield new substantial evidence. Paul Flores remained the main suspect, but without concrete evidence of his involvement in Kristin's disappearance, the case could not move forward. The Kristin Smart case had a significant impact on the Cal Poly campus. Many students felt fear and uncertainty, especially women. The university was forced to review its safety policies and emergency response procedures. Additional surveillance cameras were installed and campus lighting was improved. In 1998, partly as a result of the Kristin Smart case, the Kristin Smart Campus Safety Act was passed in California. This law required colleges and universities to immediately report student disappearances and other incidents of violence to local law enforcement agencies. Despite the lack of significant progress in the investigation, the Smart family continued to actively seek answers. They regularly appeared in the media, reminding the public about Kristin's disappearance and calling for any information that could help in the investigation. By the end of 2001, the Kristin Smart case remained unsolved, but not forgotten. The lack of concrete evidence in Kristin's body continued to complicate the work of investigators, leaving the Smart family and the public in a state of uncertainty and anticipation. In 2002, 6 years after Kristin Smart's disappearance, a significant legal event occurred. On May 25, 2002, the San Luis Obispo County Court officially declared Kristin Smart deceased. This decision was made based on California law, which allows declaring a person dead after 5 years of absence without any signs of life. For the Smart family, this was an emotionally difficult but necessary legal procedure. The official declaration of Kristin's death had several important consequences. First, it allowed the Smart family to begin the process of obtaining a death certificate, which was necessary for resolving various legal and financial issues. Second, it changed the status of the criminal case, transforming it from a missing person investigation into a potential murder investigation. Public reaction to this decision was mixed. Many perceived it as a symbolic end to the search for Kristin alive, causing a new wave of grief among those who knew her or were involved in the case. Others viewed it as a necessary step to advance the investigation and potentially bring those responsible to justice. For investigators, this change in the case status meant the possibility of applying new investigative methods and legal tools. However, despite this, direct evidence that could lead to the arrest of suspects was still lacking. The Smart family continued to insist on an active investigation of the case. They stated that the official declaration of Kristin's death did not mean they would stop seeking the truth about what happened to their daughter. The period from 2003 to 2010 was characterized by slow but steady development in the Kristin Smart case, largely due to progress in forensic technologies and the persistence of investigators. In 2003, investigators conducted a new analysis of evidence collected at the beginning of the investigation, using more advanced DNA analysis methods. Although these tests did not lead to a breakthrough in the case, they helped exclude some potential suspects and focus attention on key persons of interest. In 2004, new searches were conducted in the homes of the Flores family using advanced ground-penetrating radar equipment. These searches did not reveal Kristin's body, but provided investigators with new information about the structure and changes on the property that could be relevant to the case. 2006 was marked by the emergence of new testimonies. A former classmate of Paul Flores reported that shortly after Kristin's disappearance, Paul confessed to him about his involvement in her death. Although this testimony was important, it was still considered insufficient to bring charges without additional evidence. In 2007, investigators conducted excavations in the backyard of Paul Flores' father's house in Arroyo Grande. This operation was the result of long-standing suspicions about the possible burial of Kristin's body on this property. However, the excavations did not reveal any human remains or other significant evidence. Throughout this period, the Smart family continued to actively maintain interest in the case. They regularly appeared in the media, reminding the public about their daughter's unsolved case and calling for any information that could help in the investigation. In 2010, investigators gained access to new soil and microparticle analysis technologies. This allowed them to conduct a more detailed analysis of samples collected from Paul Flores' car and other locations related to the case. Although these tests did not provide decisive evidence, they helped investigators better understand the potential scenario of events that night. Despite these efforts, the Kristin Smart case remained unsolved. However, the constant development of technologies and the emergence of new testimonies maintained hope that the truth would eventually be revealed. In 2011, the Kristin Smart case received new impetus with the appointment of Ian Parkinson as sheriff of San Luis Obispo County. Parkinson committed to intensifying the investigation and brought a fresh perspective to the case. Under Parkinson's leadership, the sheriff's office conducted a comprehensive review of all evidence collected over the previous years. 18 boxes of case materials, located in 9 different locations, were analyzed. 37 items were sent for DNA analysis, and 140 new samples of potential evidence were collected. In 2016, a significant event occurred in the investigation. FBI search dogs detected traces near the letter P on a hill near Cal Poly University. This led to excavations at several sites around the campus. Although no specific findings were officially reported, these searches renewed public interest in the case. During this period, the Smart family continued their tireless efforts to find the truth. They regularly appeared in the media, reminding people about their daughter's unsolved case and calling on witnesses to provide any information that could help the investigation. In 2017, investigators received new testimonies from Paul Flores' former classmates. These testimonies, although not decisive, added new details to the understanding of the events of that night and Flores' character. 2018 was marked by the appearance of several documentaries and podcasts dedicated to the Kristin Smart case. These media projects not only renewed public interest in the case, but also prompted new witnesses to come forward to law enforcement with information. Despite the lack of a decisive breakthrough, these years were characterized by constant efforts of investigators and the Smart family to find the truth. Each new testimony, each new analysis of evidence, brought them closer to uncovering the mystery of Kristin's disappearance. 2019 became a turning point in the Kristin Smart case. In September, Chris Lambert's podcast Your Own Backyard was released, instantly attracting public attention to the case. The podcast examined in detail all aspects of Kristin's disappearance, including new interviews and analysis of evidence. The success of the podcast had a significant impact on the investigation. Thanks to renewed public interest, several new witnesses came forward to law enforcement with previously unknown information. These new testimonies allowed investigators to obtain additional search warrants. In February 2020, police conducted searches at the home of Paul Flores, who was 43 years old at the time, and at his parents' homes. During these searches, several items were seized that, according to investigators, could be related to Kristin's disappearance. Details of these findings were not disclosed publicly due to the ongoing investigation. In March 2020, another search was conducted at the home of Paul's father, Ruben Flores. According to the prosecution, physical evidence was found during this search indicating that Kristin's body had once been buried on this property. This information became key to the further development of the case. Also in 2020, investigators seized 2 vehicles that previously belonged to the Flores family. These vehicles were thoroughly examined for possible evidence. These events significantly accelerated the investigation and brought investigators closer to solving the mystery of Kristin Smart's disappearance. For the first time in many years, there was real hope that justice would be served, and the Smart family would finally get answers to their questions. On April 13, 2021, an event occurred that the Smart family and the public had been waiting for almost 25 years. Paul Flores was arrested and officially charged with the murder of Kristin Smart. Simultaneously, his father, Ruben Flores, who was 80 years old at the time, was also arrested. He was charged with accessory after the fact. The prosecution alleged that Paul Flores attempted to sexually assault Kristin Smart while walking her back to the dormitory. According to the prosecution's version, when Kristin resisted, Flores killed her. Ruben Flores was charged with helping his son conceal Kristin's body and consistently providing false information to investigators over the years. Paul Flores was taken into custody without the right to bail. Ruben Flores was initially also arrested, but later released on a $50,000 bail due to his advanced age and health condition. The arrests were the result of years of investigation and new evidence obtained during the searches in 2020. The prosecution stated that they had physical evidence linking Paul Flores to Kristin Smart's death, although specific details were not disclosed due to ongoing court proceedings. The Smart family reacted to the arrests with cautious optimism. In their statement, they expressed gratitude to law enforcement for their persistence and to everyone who had supported them throughout these years. However, they also noted that this was only the beginning of a new stage in their search for justice for Kristin. The arrests caused significant resonance in society. Many people who had followed the case over the years expressed relief and hope that the truth would finally be revealed. However, there were also those who called for caution in drawing conclusions, reminding about the presumption of innocence. It's important to note that during Paul Flores' arrest, the prosecution also released information about other potential crimes. According to the investigation, Flores was a suspect in several cases of sexual assault that occurred between 2007 and 2017 in the Los Angeles area. Although these charges were not directly related to the Kristin Smart case, they added a new dimension to the suspect's profile. The Kristin Smart case has had a significant impact on legislation and safety practices on university campuses across America. The Kristin Smart Campus Safety Act, passed in California in 1998, requires colleges and universities to immediately report student disappearances and other incidents of violence to local law enforcement agencies. This law has become a model for similar initiatives in other states. Kristin's memory continues to live not only through her family's efforts, but also through a scholarship fund created in her honor. This fund supports students who share Kristin's passion for travel and study abroad. The website kristinsmart.org, created by the Smart family, has become an important resource for those who want to learn more about Kristin and her case. It also serves as a platform for raising awareness about student safety and the importance of quick response to missing persons cases. Despite the arrests, many questions in the Kristin Smart case remain unanswered. The location of her remains is still unknown, which continues to be a source of pain for her family and friends. The future of the case now depends on the trial of Paul and Ruben Flores. This process is likely to reveal new details about the events of that fateful night and the years of investigation that followed. Kristin Smart's story reminds us of the importance of not giving up in the search for truth and justice, even when hope seems slim. It also highlights the power of public attention and journalistic investigations in supporting long-term criminal cases. Ultimately, the Kristin Smart case is not just a story of tragic loss, but also a tale of a family's tireless love, law enforcement's persistence, and the strength of a community united in its pursuit of justice.